And critics also say, some of them, that they feel that the president did not send a centrist message. A lot of debate on that point here. Joining me now is Alan Colmes. He's the host of the Alan Colmes radio show. And then we've got Kevin Madden, who is the former National Press Secretary to Mitt Romney, joining us in D.C. Good morning, gentlemen. Good to have both of you here.
Good morning.
So, Alan, let's start with the gun control issue. You know, a lot of folks pointed to that moment when he talked about the 9-year-old little girl whose life was lost and said, you know, this was a perfect moment to say that we need to do something about the kind of magazines that were used in that shooting. He didn't go there.
Like Mayor Bloomberg of New York, and I wanted him to do that. I wish he had done that as well. Look, no matter what he says, there are always going to be those who will say, well, he should have said this as well. And then he would say, well, the speech was too long. Look at all the time.
But you do make choices. And you do say, you know, they work on these speeches for weeks, okay? So there was a choice that was made not to talk about that. Why was that? You can always be critical.
I don't know. If I had that kind of answer, I'd probably have another kind of a job. But obviously he picked his priorities. Gun control, I would have liked to have had him spend more time talking about why we should not be repealing health care. The purpose of having everybody covered, that right now we are subsidizing those who have health care, subsidize those who don't. I would have liked to have seen that. But to say that he didn't have a centrist message, his critics will always say that. He clearly has governed as a centrist for the last couple of years and continues to conduct himself as a centrist, not some wide-eyed radical as his detractors, Kevin's laughing, as his detractors love to portray him.
All right, Kevin, weigh in here. We had gun control, Gitmo, not discussed. That was one of his top priorities when he came into office, and a lot of folks are wondering why we're now starting trials down there again. It hasn't been closed. And foreign policy also very light on the plate last night.
Yeah, well, Alan's right. As the resident detractor here, I think that President Obama has talked like a centrist, particularly when he was a candidate. And at the beginning of his term, he talked like a centrist, but he governed very far to the left of where the American public is. I think that the omission of gun control was one where the White House knows that it's an electoral loser. If you look at the electoral map that helped put President Obama into office, places like northern Florida, places like Ohio, places like Nevada, the western states like Colorado, they have a very different view of the issue of the Second Amendment than folks like Mayor Bloomberg and Governor Ed Rendell do, folks who were pushing for
that may have weighed in, and why he didn't talk about gun control?
Of course it's not lost on me. Had he talked about gun control, you'd have people like Kevin criticizing him for his position on gun control. Look, but he didn't. If he didn't avoid hot-button issues, he talked about immigration. He said, look, Muslims are part of America. CARE then congratulated him for saying that. He did not avoid hot-button controversial issues.
So I think that's right.
He didn't play it safe in the speech last night, Kevin.
Let's talk about the Sputnik moment. I just want to get your thoughts on this, Kevin. You know, a lot of folks have said this morning that he talked about the Sputnik moment, referring, of course, to the space race between Russia and the United States back in the 60s, and saying this is our moment. And yet, it didn't go unnoticed that he's defunded in large part NASA, and that in that Sputnik moment recognition, he failed to talk about our greatest enemy out there, which is what the Sputnik moment was all about. It's called a metaphor. The metaphor was lost on me, apparently, Alan.
It's a metaphor. I know you know what that is.
Right, it's a metaphor.
Okay, but answer the question that I put to you.
The question is, look, Martha, it seems to me that you or Kevin would never be happy with whatever this president does. He's going to get criticized from all sides. The fact is, he's now got a 53% approval rating. He's rating higher than most presidents, including Ronald Reagan at this point in their presidency.
Absolutely.
And he is resonating with the American public at this point. So we can nitpick all we want about what he should have, would have, could have, but he is actually doing quite well at the moment.
So did he pick all the right things, Kevin? You know, he's on a roll in his approval numbers right now, and Alan makes a good point.
I'm going to surprise Alan by saying I don't think there were any glaring omissions last night. I think he had a right focus on some of these topics, but I think his emphasis on a lot of these topics was what was quite glaring. You consider the fact that how difficult things are right now in Afghanistan, and that there wasn't enough an emphasis of what's going on there and in Pakistan. You know, that's probably where people will criticize, and I think it's a legitimate criticism. But you know, I think this was the first speech of President Obama's 2012 election campaign, and he did try and play it safe by trying to hit a whole roster of issues.
I don't think
that
about immigration and our pathway to citizenship and how we have children of immigrants who were ignored by this last Congress because they wouldn't pass the act that would have given them.
Let me ask you guys one.
I think there's agreement on Capitol Hill that we need to deal with immigration. We just disagree.
Well, they didn't do it. They refused to act.
Did it take him too long to get around to talking about the deficit, Alan, and then Kevin, real quick?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Did it take him too long to get around to talking about the seriousness of the deficit?
So, is in the wrong place in the speech? I mean, come on.
I think it took him too long.
But it was in the wrong spot. I mean, give me a break.
It took him 2 years to. It was 2 years too long to talk about.